Hello, people.
Jack Kalpick, we are here for our first podcast. Welcome. It's good to be out here with you. Rutgers with another big win. Lot to discuss. College football. Craziness with wins and losses yesterday.
Yes.
On that part of it. And of course, we will have to wrap things up with gangrene, New York Jets, and seeing how Nick P can take it home.
How are you doing today, Father?
I'm doing all right, Jack Kalpick. How are you doing?
I'm doing well.
Yeah?
Jets on a bye today, so I have nothing to scream about.
So that's always a good sign.
Always good for the mental health when the Jets aren't playing.
But yesterday, we had an amazing game with Rutgers versus the Indiana Hoosiers. It was a Hoosiers homecoming game, Jack.
It was the Hoosiers homecoming game.
And their weather was a lot nicer than ours.
Yes, we dealt with rain a little bit yesterday. And to notice that it was nice and sunny over there. But big game for the boys. Bowl eligibility for the first time since 2014. Obviously went to the bowl eligibility. Obviously went to a bowl game in 2020, but the first year where we won 6 games in that time frame, and big game. This is a different Rutgers team. Playing Indiana yesterday, to me at least, I don't know about you, felt like one of those classic games where they just go in and they lose.
Yeah. I was thinking the same thing on that part of it. It's like it's a game. There's been a lot of games in the past. They're supposed to win. Everybody's sitting there saying, Rutgers going to win. Rutgers going to blow them out. I heard, some picks saying this is going to be where they're going to get, Indiana's going to get a big fat goose egg. And then we're going to get to the end. It's going to be a close game. Something's going to happen. And we're going to lose, 24-17 or 24-21. And everyone's going to be like, oh, my God.
Yeah.
But that's not what happened yesterday, Jack.
It's not
what ended up happening.
It's not what happened, and it's not what we've seen from the Rutgers Scarlet Knights this year. It's felt like we're waiting on that game, and it hasn't come, and we've already reached bowl eligibility, right?
True.
We almost saw it happen against Michigan State with going down 24-6, but the team rallied back in the fourth quarter. We were there. Not many people else stayed.
Yeah, it was horrible weather. The crowd, as everybody knows, was cleared out, understandably. But at some point, the Knights have to get the respect of the fans that, even if you're sitting up there on the concourse with some covering, like we were, so we can't say we're on the third row soaking wet. That is definitely a scenario where, Rutgers found a way, and I have to be honest with you. Just going back to Michigan State for a second, I'm sitting in that game. It's coming up in the end of the third quarter. And part of me, and Philomena Kalpick says, if Michigan State scores again, we're going to leave. And I'm like, there is no reason to be outside in these elements on such a nasty day, shooting the whole day, coming down here to watch just a mess. And I'm watching that end of the third, and I go, if they do not score something, and I can't tell you how many years I sat and have done that, I've rationalized in my mind how they're going to win the game. By doing this, by doing that. And I go, they don't score by the end of the third quarter, this game is over.
Yeah.
Okay? And literally, like 40 seconds into the fourth quarter, we've blocked the punt, we've scored, and I look up at the clock, and it's like 14 minutes and 40 seconds or 20 seconds left in the fourth quarter, and I'm like, wow, it's 24-13. Maybe. A gleam. And they pull it off. Great calls, great special teams that's there. But we know about that game. Let's talk more about Hoosiers. Tom Allen, their coach, definitely on the hot seat.
Yeah.
But they have played some teams tough. They played Michigan State for a half tough, and I understand that's only a half. They played Ohio State in the beginning of the season.
Michigan
tough.
or Michigan State? They played
Michigan.
Yeah, Michigan, they played. You said Michigan State.
Oh, did I say Michigan State? Yeah, no, I meant
Michigan in that first quarter, they were playing them really good at a point, and then obviously the game got blown away. But
they were ahead.
Yeah.
In that game.
But yeah, you look at them. We saw only 12 passes thrown by the Scarlet Knights yesterday.
Yeah.
Big running day for the team, and the lead, and I would say probably the leader of that rushing attack was Gavin Wimsatt. 16 carries, 143 yards, and 3 touchdowns, averaging 9 yards a carry. That's just kind of a game rushing wise we've been looking for Gavin. He had that big run where it kind of looked like he was just going to get tackled, and he just didn't. He kept taking those long strides all the way down to the end zone, which was really nice to see. Didn't really do anything throwing, but when he was rushing the ball that well, that guy also had an additional 24 carries, 109 yards. So when we were running the ball that well, 50 total carries, I think, somewhere around there on the team, you don't need to throw at that point.
Yeah, it's true, and obviously that's definitely the scenario that the Knights are going with, right? The Knights, Greg is playing Seattle football. Seattle football is old school, grind it out, make that line, push the defensive line, get your running backs, and we know we have a stable of running backs. With Manangai, leading that deservedly as the best back in the Big Ten. It's clearly there. And his mindset is, if that's the way we can win, a W is a W. Now, he hasn't said that, but just watching it in the play calling, you've got to believe that point. And we'll get into Gavin Wimsatt in a little bit, talking about the offense and passing, because I think that's something we have to spend a little bit of time just dissecting where he's at, because I don't know if it's just a question of him not throwing because they're just doing smash mouth football, or is it they're doing smash mouth football, which they're doing, but are they also in a situation where that pass game looks very shaky? But before we get into that, let's talk a little bit about the offensive line.
Yeah, the offensive line's been great.
Yeah.
We've really noticed a big improvement, and I was listening to the game yesterday, obviously, I'm watching. But we noticed that they didn't, there's not been a huge overhaul in offensive linemen. It's pretty much the same group from the last few years, but they've just improved so much. You can tell those guys are putting the work in every day, and they're just getting better. Gavin has time in the pocket. Manangai has holes to run through. He, with his vision also, he's been one of the best backs in the Big Ten, if not one of the best backs in the country so far this year. I believe he's still the Big Ten leading rusher up through this point of the year. So, you've just looked at how that line's played, and I think both lines, the offensive line's played really well, but the defensive line, we've been able to get some pressure on quarterbacks the course of the year, even if we haven't done a great job wrapping once we're in the backfield, but still getting pressure. I feel like we've done a pretty good job compared to past years, and it's been nice.
Well, it's funny, you talk about that. I mean, you have to take your hats off to Pat Flaherty, former, New York Giants line coach that Greg brought in. He has, he's old school. He's been around. He coached at Rutgers during Shiano's first stint. That's there. He's got Super Bowl, rings to prove it. But we also know that offensive line has got to be, in general, with any team, right? Everything starts with the offensive line. And I used to not really understand that, I think, really to the level that's there. I thought, you have a great quarterback, great receivers, great running back. Of course the offensive line's important, right? They got to open up holes, they got to hold things up for the quarterback to be able to pass, but never looked at it to the degree that over the last several years, seeing Rutgers, that, and even the New York Giants right now, with the troubles that they've had, everything starts with the line. And Pat Flaherty has been able to get, this group, together and in unison, that these holes are being brought up. Because the reality is this on it: if they're not doing that, Manangai's not, running the ball the way he is. At least to get past the beginning of the line. Yeah. That's there. So I think, hats off to Greg bringing him in. He is an absolute steal that he was even, floating around. He came in later. He wasn't one of these coaches that, came in a while ago. They just got him. He had to get in there. and he's doing his thing, and it is paying some, amazing dividends.
Yeah.
For Rutgers in terms of what's there. But I said to you before, we'll wait on it. Let's talk about Gavin a little bit, about what we're seeing on those pass plays, right? We saw yesterday some nice ones where we thread the needle.
Yeah.
We saw some ones where they went in and they were just dropped.
Yeah.
And then we saw some Gavin Wimsatt that we've seen in years past and this year where they're sailing over, and these are pickable balls. What's your take on what you think on here, especially with your background with playing quarterback before?
I'm not going to look too far into the Indiana game, right? He had 5 completed passes, 12 thrown balls. I think you got to look more into the Michigan State game if you're going to look into the realm of Gavin Wimsatt. And I think that Michigan State game shows who Gavin Wimsatt is currently as a quarterback. There were throws in that game. He sails the ball, right? That's an interception. There are 2 picks in that game. But then you look, he had that touchdown in the back of the end zone to Isaiah Washington. That's a beautiful throw. Threading the needle.
That was special.
Right. He had a little dump off on the 2-point conversion, but it was a good read to Christian Dremel. He can do things with the ball that we haven't seen from a Rutgers quarterback in years. But it's also, he just doesn't fully, I don't think, understand how to control what he can do with the ball every time. So sometimes he looks special. Sometimes he looks like a below average quarterback in the Big Ten. It's about getting Gavin to a point where he feels comfortable enough to make those special type of throws consistently enough.
With all the practice on here, you being a former quarterback yourself, why is that, this far into it, right? He played a half a season roughly last year. He's played a half a season this year. Why are we still seeing that, inability to really rein in a very strong arm on shorter passes, and also to be in a position whereby, these passes are not sailing when he has a decent amount of time?
I think there's 2 issues to it. One, I think it's confidence, right? And it's not that he lacks confidence, that basically, or it's more he just, the nerves of playing in the environment, right? You're playing Big Ten football. You're playing in this big stadium. Tens of thousands of people are watching you. It's tough. And then you also have to worry about guys running straight at your face. You have to worry about defensive coverages. It's a lot for a quarterback, especially a young quarterback. Remember, he's still not old. He really should be a sophomore currently. He should technically.
Well, he's a redshirt, right? He's a redshirt sophomore.
Yeah, but when we look at it, he really should be a true sophomore.
True sophomore, right? Because he would have finished his senior year and came out early.
So, I think he's still a young quarterback. I think he still had to give him a little bit more time, but he's improved. He definitely looks more confident than he did last year. It's not like we're saying this is an unconfident kid.
Nope.
It's just sometimes you got to sit there and when you look at everything, you look at the defensive coverage, you have a receiver right in front of you, and you really don't want to miss that throw because coach is going to be on you about it. It gets tough, and you let a throw sail.
Yeah, that's there on that part of it. Talking about, why don't we jump over to a really exciting topic, and that's the topic of bowl games.
Yes.
Okay. Now that they're bowl eligible, let's talk about some places that they're talking about. I'm going to start with what's probably considered the most realistic ones. Okay, they're talking about, and then we'll get a little bit flighty if this 6-2, can become a 7,
7-5, 8-4,
7-5, 8-4, or
9-3.
As I predicted, 9-3. They told me that was impossible. You think it's still funny? Remember before the season began, I picked 9-3.
I think it's
a lot of people laughed at me.
I did.
Your old football coach said to me, "Bro, when I said 9-3, that's his only response, bro."
Yeah.
Like, don't even say it. But anyway, going back onto, we're not going to go into our 9-3 here. We'll wait till we get there, so then we can gloat about it. Looking at in terms of some different bowls that are most likely. I'm going to run through the bowls quickly and then see what your take on and where you'd like to be. Okay.
All right.
So Music City Bowl in Nashville versus an SEC team. That's December 30th. We got the Las Vegas Bowl, December 23rd. And that's going to be versus a Pac-12 team. The Quick Lane Bowl, which is in Detroit, versus a MAC team on December 26th. Guaranteed Rate Bowl on December 26th in Phoenix versus a Big 12 team. And then the old Bronx Bombers, the Pinstripe Bowl, December 28th versus ACC. These are teams these are games you're saying most likely looking at things being in that 6-6, 7-5 range would be games that we would see. Any thoughts on any of those games?
Yeah. I think home field advantage-wise, the best one's probably the Pinstripe Bowl, right, for us. Obviously, it's the old Pinstripe Bowl. We've gotten there a million times, it feels like. But I think it would be a good little thing. We come back. We're not super far away from home. I think there's some more fun bowls in there. I think the Las Vegas Bowl is fun, right? I think you look at them. I think probably the most boring one out of those, if you guess, is the Quick Lane Bowl, only because you're playing a MAC team in there. And not to say anything against the MAC, but it's MAC football.
It's not Big Ten.
It's not. You're not playing another Power 5 school.
Right.
You're not going to get the excitement of playing another Power 5 school.
You do get to play in the Detroit Lions Stadium.
Yeah, but yeah.
Was that Ford Stadium?
Ford Stadium, yes.
I think in terms of what's on there, the two that I find interesting, I do like the Las Vegas Bowl, but Las Vegas Bowl aside, I like the Guaranteed Rate Bowl going back to Phoenix. All right.
Yeah.
Insight Bowl, 2005. I was there. Jack Havoc weren't even born, and I will tell you that it was the most exciting game I've ever been to for a bowl game that we did not win. Okay. That was a game we could have won. It was just amazing to see that sea of red, to see people come together. That before that time, to be honest with you, you had crowds, not always there. People weren't always there. And it was just to get there and it's like, wow, we could travel. Okay, we actually traveled to a game, had a section of people all dressed in red. It was amazing. Not in white, not in purple, not in black, in red. So, kind of going back to that Phoenix, I think, be a little bit of nostalgia. Wouldn't mind going to Nashville. Talk to your mother about driving down to it, but she says we got to fly. So that's where we're going to have to see how that works out on that part of it. Moving up from that, okay, I'm going to call this maybe, possibly, but we still have some work to do, is going to be the Relia Quest Bowl, January 1st in Tampa, Big Ten versus SEC. The Cheez-It Citrus Bowl in Orlando on January 1st. Big Ten versus SEC. Okay, that's probably going to need us in that 7-5, 8-4. And then if we make 9-3, Jack Havoc. The Fiesta Bowl, January 1st in Glendale, Arizona.
We're the Fiesta Bowl.
The Peach Bowl in Atlanta, December 30th.
Not making the Peach Bowl.
The Cotton Bowl, December 29th in Arlington.
The Cotton Bowl.
And then the Orange Bowl, December 30th in Miami.
I'm going to say to you...
but we're going to have to be ranked no lower than the 15th best team.
Yeah, I don't think we're going to get that high.
To be on that one.
One thing with the rankings I will mention.
Yeah.
First 2 votes. Our first votes in forever, I believe. I can't think of any time we've received votes in the last 5 years, 6 years now. I don't have.
If you're old as me, that's not forever, Jeff.
I don't have the exact numbers for you. Think about me 5 years ago. I was 12 years old. But yeah, we received 2 votes in the AP poll today after receiving bowl eligibility for the first time in 9 years, and it's really cool. It's something that I didn't expect, really. I sat there in the back of my mind yesterday after we won, and I said, maybe. But I didn't think that it would actually happen.
Yeah, no, that's, as you know, doesn't do too much unless you keep finding out a way to win. And, this podcast today, we're not going to venture into Ohio State because that's, in and of itself, probably its own podcast to be able to talk about in terms of where that part plays in. But yes, nice little tidbit. Somebody noticed us.
Yep.
Right? Based upon that, they say we're ranked 34th in the country.
Yes.
Okay. But listen, we got, I think let's just talk for a moment. We talked about jumping the ball games. We talked about the game yesterday. What's there, things that Gavin's got to work on. Let's talk about these next 4 games just in general, okay, that are coming up, relating to what's there. We got Ohio State's coming up. We have a bye week this week, and then we have Ohio State.
No, we have Iowa first, and then Ohio State.
No, Ohio State is first.
Oh, I thought it was Iowa first. I apologize.
You gotta check that. You gotta check that schedule, Jack Epic. Yeah, no, this is what's really cool. We're in a bye week at 6-2. Going to be playing Ohio State on November 4th.
I apologize. I am wrong. I thought it was Iowa. I thought it was Iowa, then Ohio State, then Penn State. My apologies.
And then after that, then we go on the road for 2 games, and we got Iowa, and then Penn State, and then we come home for Thanksgiving weekend. A little turkey gobbler game against the up and down Maryland.
Yeah.
That's there.
One thing I'll say is crazy, and this isn't even a Rutgers thing, it's just a college football thing that, we're going to play that last game on November 25th, and then you're not going to play for a month.
Yeah.
That's kind of crazy to think a little bit.
Well, that's why Coach would always say, so he's super excited. He's been saying it since Channel 1.1 and Channel 2.0, is he loves the opportunity for those extra practices he's going to get, on how important those practices are on getting the team, that much closer to the bowl game than playing, and then having a shorter stint before spring practice begins.
Yeah. All right, let's talk about the next 4 games, though. Ohio State, I think will open up as about similar to what we opened up against Michigan. I think it'll be about that plus 24 for the Scarlet Knights.
Okay.
And I don't think this is going to be your old school bloodbath anymore. I think I don't think we're going to win, but I don't think it's going to be a bloodbath, not to get too involved, but I think we'll stay around that spread amount. I think we might cover, but I don't think it's going to be anywhere near like the 76-0 we used to see.
And what do you think about that? What do you think about Iowa after that? I know Coach would be upset we're looking ahead, but for purposes of just a brief take on that, Iowa, who lost a nail biter, one that, depending on how you looked at it, should have won yesterday.
Yeah, questionable call there at the end.
Questionable call that was there. Seems like it was correct, but you could kind of see it both ways. And of course, the kid ran for it. It takes it back to the house on here on what was called a fair catch. Thoughts on that game, and Minnesota pulling out one on a Minnesota team that's not playing the way it was last year, at least for sure.
On that game, I think you got to give your hats off to PJ Fleck, Minnesota head coach, coaching a great game. But for us against Iowa, I think that's the wild card game of the rest of the year. I think for me, this is a weird Iowa team because they're not going to score points. I think it's going to be 2 defenses that are just great, right? Rutgers boasting right now, I would say honestly, you could go as high as 15 defense in the country, right? And right now, it's like, okay, are you going to be able to run the ball against that Iowa defense? I don't know, and I don't really think so. But is Iowa going to be able to move the ball against us? We might be looking at a 14-10 game. 10 that one off. It's just going to be an ugly game.
It might be 7-7 with a field goal to win it at the end.
Yeah. It's going to be an ugly game. I'm definitely taking the under if I was a betting man on that one. But I think it's my wild card game. I think if we're going to win one, I would probably still lean towards Maryland out of the 2, but I would say just due to Maryland being home. But I don't think us beating Iowa is super out of the realm of possibility. Obviously, we are playing there, which is a much tougher environment. But I don't think it's super out of the realm of possibility. It's just that offense. It depends what Iowa team shows up. If that offense scores some points, we're going to lose. If they decide to play like they did last night, we're not going to lose.
So let's move on to that Penn State game. I think we learned a little bit in Ohio State beating Penn State yesterday. I really thought, this is the year of Penn State quietly moving itself up, Penn State's going to go in and they're going to beat Ohio State, and that does not happen. Neither team scored, did really anything on offense. But I'm surprised at Penn State not being able to, turn it up to the next level to be able to do that. Does that do anything, do you think, in us going to happy, or what we like to call unhappy valley?
No. Out of the two games, honestly, I'd pick us to beat Ohio State before I pick us to beat Penn State. Just because of the venues we're playing at, right? There's going to be 100,000 people in Penn State screaming at you. We're not winning that game, I don't think, personally. Right? Again, it might be the Ohio State game where I think we might be able to cover. But I think... here's the answer I'll give to you for a little glimpse of hope.
Okay.
It depends how Drew Aller is able to bounce back. I still think he is one of the better quarterbacks in college football. He played a bad game last night. Or, my apologies, yesterday afternoon. But if Aller doesn't bounce back, kind of like I expect him to, then yeah, maybe you have a shot. Maybe he starts playing bad, and maybe he can't shake this game out of his head, it being such a big game. But assuming he's able to, and assuming he's able to take a step forward after experiencing like the first real hardship of his college career, I think it will be impactful for him, and he'll do great the rest of the season.
Gotcha. Okay, and then we come home to Maryland, right? It seems to be an up and down team, but overall, as the season started and as things started to move forward, even when they've played, the top tier teams, it appears that they're able to hang with them. Not something we've shown as much. What do you think with Maryland and Maryland being home for what possibly could be that 7th win, even though I think it'll be for the 9th one?
Yeah, I just said it. I think it's probably our most possible win the rest of the season. Right.
Senior day.
It's senior day. It depends what version of Maryland shows up. We just saw them. I lose to, I believe, Illinois. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Yes.
And
they're on a bye week now.
Yeah, but the last game we saw, they
just finished their bye week.
They went on a 2-game losing streak after looking like one of the better teams in the Big Ten. So it's just interesting. It depends what team shows up. It depends what Tualia shows up.
And it's a home game. We've been playing tough at home.
Yeah. We've looked better at home.
Yep.
It depends how special teams plays, right? No muff punts. Maybe we get another punt return back. If we're able to get some magic going in that game, I think that could be a win for us. I don't think it's crazy out of the wrong possibility, but I'm not 100% sure, right? We saw Maryland go, 5-0 at a point, and now they're 5-2. It's like...
Right. Who's showing up?
Who's showing up?
All right. So it sounds like you got us at 1, possibly 2, if there's a miracle in Iowa and the Cornstalks come down and they plow through.
Yeah.
Monongai plows it through. That's there.
One interesting point I will bring up. We are one of only 5 teams in the Big Ten currently with bowl eligibility.
There you go. Okay. Says a lot in terms of that part of it. Also,
I believe it is us, Penn State, Ohio State, Michigan, Iowa.
Okay. And I'd like to just say that we have 6 wins, and so does Penn State.
There we go.
So that says a lot in terms of that part. Moving over to the landscape of college football from yesterday.
Yes.
What were some surprises you saw?
I think the first one, I think it's the most obvious upset of the night, is Virginia taking down UNC in Chapel Hill is a crazy turn of events for an undefeated UNC team. Some people thought still had playoff aspirations.
And yeah, Virginia, and Virginia's not a good team this year.
No.
This is an off year for them on here.
They've gone through a few off years after making that ACC championship a few years ago.
But not good, and then to come in to be able to do that, and it talks to you a little bit about rivalries, right? Local teams that are there, they get pumped up. This is their, championship, and they obviously found a way to do it.
Yeah.
What else did you find interesting from yesterday?
Utah eliminating USC from playoff contention. Caleb Williams is the best quarterback in college football. I don't care what names you want to throw out, right? But he is the best player in college football. Okay. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it to me. I don't think he's going to win a Heisman, obviously. But, he struggled the last 2 games, and they've lost because of it. And to see him struggling is interesting. We'll see how he bounces back from this adversity. He didn't play terribly against Utah. He didn't play great. They lost on the last-second field goal. But it's interesting to see that he's not even going to make a college football playoff appearance in all of his time in college.
So two other games I want you to comment on, and then we'll start moving over to Gangrene and their game that will be coming up for next week since they're on our bye week. But before we get to that, 2 that really caught my eye: Florida State Duke, okay, and also the Clemson Miami game.
Florida State Duke.
With Florida State on that one, Duke was in a scenario where they had the lead in the 3rd quarter. Okay.
Yeah, here's what I'll say. Riley Leonard was injured in that game, and it cost Duke the game, I would say, right? Duke's quarterback. He's looked good.
Yeah.
Right? Only 16 passes from him so far. Right? Or not so far. In that game.
Yeah.
He was a game-time decision, decided to play one of the bigger games of his college career, and I do think that is going to play. I did think that played a huge role in him losing that game.
Yeah.
Jaquez Moore had a huge game for the running back for the Blue Devils. He had a huge game. We saw Jordan Travis have an okay game for Florida State, and he had a great game rushing. But yeah, I do think this Florida State team is beatable. I do think they're a good team right now. I think they're a playoff team.
You think they're a playoff team?
Yeah.
Yeah, so do I.
But they haven't. I'm going to be honest with you. They really haven't done much since beating LSU in that first week of the year. But it'll be interesting to see.
I think they're the real deal. I have to be honest with you. Going back to what you were saying there, this was a close game. Duke was winning. I understand it's Duke, right? So we're like, all right, Duke's obviously having a very good season this season. That's there. A little bit uncharacteristically, from that, we could see them having a good one, but they're having a very good one. They, once they went for it, on 4th down, which I thought was not a smart move by Duke, and instead of taking the points, they scored 18 points, Florida State, between the middle of the 3rd quarter to the rest of the game, unanswered, and put the game away. It ended up, it was, I'm trying to remember exactly, I want to say it was 20-17, I think is what the score was, and I'm wrong on this. I said 18 points. No, they scored more than that. They scored 21 points on that one. 21 unanswered points between the middle of the 3rd quarter and the rest of the 4th quarter. They put that game away 38-20. Let's move over to the Clemson-Miami game. What the heck is going on with Clemson?
I have no idea what's going on in Davo land. They're just not looking the same way they used to. Miami has been struggling so far this year. I mean, they were good. They had ACC title aspirations, and then Mario Cristobal made some questionable calls. Right, not kneeling the ball 2 weeks ago against Georgia Tech, selling that game, going in losing in UNC. A lot of people thought that'd be a revenge game for them, following the Georgia Tech loss. But bouncing back at home versus Clemson in double overtime, beating Caleb Klubnik and the guys. We saw for Clemson, Jake Bringstool have a great game. He had 5 catches, 126 yards, 2 touchdowns. Caleb Klubnik, I gotta say, had a good game, right? 314 yards, 2 touchdowns, and only 1 pick. For Miami, they started Emory Williams. He played all right. 151 yards, a touchdown, and a pick. And they played good, right? They played good enough to stay in that game. Their defense played well, and they were just able to come out on top.
It's interesting with the Miami game. I mean, just a bad situation on Clemson's part. Clemson is up 17-7 at the end of the 3rd quarter. On that part of it, And, so you're talking about, being in a situation where there's two scores, right? That Miami is going to have to score in the fourth quarter on that part of it. And they do it.
Yeah.
Right? And they do it, and they go into overtime on that part of it. And they Clemson can't score the touchdown. They go with the field goal. Miami does the same. That's there, and then Miami, gets the touchdown, and then is in a situation where in the second quarter, they score 8 points and put this away. And Clemson can't score because obviously they would need a touchdown. That didn't happen, and in double overtime, takes a Miami team that was 4-2 against a Clemson that was 4-2, and now Miami's 5-2, and Clemson is 4-3. Shocking if you would think, not necessarily against Miami, who's definitely was one of the hotter teams, but has since cooled off a little bit. You would think Clemson, would have gotten their act together and been in a situation of being 5-2. That after 7 games, they got 5 to go. You could still turn around a season and have 9 or 10 wins.
Yeah.
Now, that's not going to be the case, and obviously, any scenario of any high-ranking bowl is pretty much out of the picture for them.
Yep.
Knowing where they're going to be.
One last thing I'd like to talk to you about in the realm of college football: Heisman rankings.
Okay. Yeah.
I still would say that Michael Penix Jr. is your favorite to win the Heisman right now. He walked in and played a close game against a bad Arizona State team. Mm-hmm. Only winning 15-7. But currently, J.J. McCarthy, after having another good game, is your favorite. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, we're still at the 2/3 point on the season, right? Penix can afford a game like yesterday if over the next 3 or 4 games he's dominant like he's been.
Yeah.
Okay. McCarthy, I think the knock you're going to have a little bit with McCarthy, if there is a knock, again, excellent quarterback, has done some amazing things, is, he's on the number 2 team in the country. Okay, so he gets a tremendous amount of help, across the board, between the line he's got, the running backs he has, the receivers he has, and the defense is just shuts things down.
The real knock I would make on McCarthy, and again, I know as the big Rutgers homer you are, this is going to hurt you for me to say, hasn't played anyone. He hasn't played a tough team yet. He hasn't. I don't even know if he's played a ranked team yet. The odds are projecting that he's going to go in, beat Ohio State. He's going to go in, beat Penn State. Right? That's what those are projecting for, I think. And yeah, if he does those and he plays well in those games, I think he wins the Heisman. But I think right now you got to say it's Michael Penix Jr. Obviously, he struggled against a bad Washington team. I mean, the yards and completion percentage were there. 27-42, 275 yards. But the 2 picks are really what's holding him back against a bad Arizona State team. You got to look at it, though. He has the best win of a quarterback in college football right now. You could say Kyle McCord if you really wanted to, but Ohio State won that game, right? It's not Kyle McCord played out of his mind. Michael Penix Jr. played really good against Oregon.
Yeah.
And so I'd think to not say that he would be in there. And then I think the dark horse Heisman candidate, if you maybe say one right now, it's Jaden Daniels, quarterback for LSU. He's played really well. It's just
I don't see.
LSU has played really bad, but he himself has been really electric this year.
He's a great quarterback. I'm not saying he's not a great quarterback. I don't think with the Heisman is the way the LSU has played overall. And you know how we feel about the LSU's head coach. We just can't.
I got to be as least biased as possible, Father. But yeah, I mean, you look at a quarterback right now.
Brian Kelly, the former Notre Dame coach, that said he wasn't leaving Notre Dame nor leaving Cincinnati. Shows up at LSU.
No bias, Father. No bias. I mean, you look at him though. He's what else can he do as a quarterback, right? 2,500 yards so far, 25 touchdowns, only 3 interceptions.
Yeah, it's impressive.
He's been electric this year.
But we know good quarterbacks that play on bad teams usually don't.
But we're looking at this might be for him right now. Again, he's 3rd favorite in the Heisman odds. This might be a different type of scenario. 2 things I'll say. 1, LSU's not a bad team, right? I believe they're ranked 15th right now. It's not like we're saying they're the 4-3 LSU
15th?
team. Yeah, they're 15th in the rankings, I believe, today.
Oh yeah, I think they were at 19th and moved to 15th.
Yeah, they're the 15th
And
team
who
in the
did they
country.
just play? And they beat
Army 62-0.
Oh my God! They moved them up 4 spots by beating Army.
62-0.
Come on.
Um,
And that's embarrassing. They even ran it up to 62.
What are you gonna do? But yeah, he's just been a different animal this year. You look at LSU; they've had maybe the best offense in college football, and the only reason I'm going to say why I think he's my dark horse currently is he still has the games to be played to the point where he can still win the award. He's going in. Not next weekend, but the weekend after. They have a bye going into this week. He's going into Bryant-Denny Stadium, and he's going to go play Alabama. If he goes in that game and he throws 400 yards, 4 touchdowns, why wouldn't he be the favorite, right? Against a top 10 Alabama team currently, right? He's still going to play Florida. He's still going to play Texas A&M. I think with four games remaining for the quarterback.
Those are impressive games.
I think with 4 games remaining for the quarterback, I still think he has a good shot to win the Heisman Trophy when people take into account that his defense has just been so bad this year, even though that offense has been great.
If he's able to dominate those 4 games, I agree with you. He should be in there. But since I think most of those games, Mr. Kelly will find a way to lose, I think he may just be on the runner-up spot. With that said, let's move over to a team that cannot lose today.
The New York Jets.
It's amazing. They don't have the ability to lose.
I am very used to losing with those.
You must be very excited that you're coming off of a 1-0 last week.
Yes.
For your New York Jets.
3-3 at the bye.
3-3. Who would ever think after the debacle of the first week, you and I walking into the stadium, and we're sitting down, Aaron Rodgers, we're not even in the seat because that's how many people were there. And they're like, he's coming off the field. Coming off the field for what?
Yes.
You need a break? He forgot his water bottle? His towel? What could he be leaving the field for?
Yeah. That wasn't fun. But the Jets have looked good, right? Zach Wilson has played over the last 3 games, right? He was shaky to start this year off. But for the last 3 games, he's been good. I gotta say, right? He's just been what the Jets need. Pretty much a player who's not going to... I mean, he almost won his game against the Chiefs. I'm not going to say what I'm going to say, but I'm going to say it anyway. He's not a player who's...
Homer alert, folks. Homer alert.
He's not a player who's going to win you games. This is not a very Homer comment. This is not a winner. This is not a player who's going to win you games. This is a player who's not going to lose you games, though. Right? He's a player who's just going to be there as of now.
Not going to lose you games. The balls you threw. Are you in the pen?
Over the last 3 games, what is he
right,
done?
he's gotten better. So let's change the language a little. Let's be a little bit more precise. He has been efficient.
Not really,
and
honestly.
by being efficient, that means ways not to throw the ball away.
Let me speak, Father. He's been more efficient in the West Coast offense over the last 3 weeks. He's been going through his first reads. He's been getting the ball out faster. Nathaniel Hackett has slowed this offense down to benefit Zach Wilson.
To make him more efficient on what he's doing.
But what I'm saying is, over the last 3 games, and that's what I was saying, I was only talking about the last 3 games.
He was good. You can't use the word good.
I said against the Chiefs he was good. I said he's
been good over the last 3 games.
I said he's going to be average. I said he's a player who's not going to win you games. He's a player that's not going to lose you games. That's not good. That's not good by any means.
I agree. Not part of it. He can lose you games, but he has been improving, Jack.
Over the last 3 weeks, he's shown that he's a player that's not going to win you games. He's not going to lose you games. But there are players on this team that are going to win you games. Breece Hall is a player who's going to win you games.
He is a real
Quinn
deal.
Williams is a player who's going to win you games. Quincy Williams might be one of the better linebackers in all of the National Football League. Same with TJ Mosley. We were able to win a game and force Jalen Hurts, who might be a top 5 quarterback, definitely is probably, I'd say, a top 7 quarterback, to throw 3 picks against practice squad corners. We had Sauce.
You were yelling about we're in the game
because we had guys we called off the practice squad a week ago, guarding AJ Brown, who might be a top 15 receiver in football. Another player who's going to win you games, Garrett Wilson, one of the best receivers in the National Football League. What he's showing me this year, I think he's a top 10 receiver. You know, he is spectacular. The way he runs routes, the way he's able to catch some of these balls. That it's like Zach puts him up in situations where it's like, I don't know if you're going to catch that, and then Garrett comes down with it, and it's like, wow, that kid really is special. But the defense is amazing. The offense has been playing better. And I think this is what we need. I was sat there after we were 1-3 and we lost the Chiefs, and I was like, well, we're looking better. What if we go out and we win the next 2 games? That's exactly what we did going into the bye, and it leads some optimism as a Jets fan.
You can't. Two things I have to agree with you on. If you told me after the debacle with Rutgers that the Jets at break would be 3-3, I would tell you not a chance.
Yeah.
We knew coming into the season the defense was lights out. What would you say in top 5?
I would go higher than that. I'd go top 3.
Top 3 on that one. And I can't disagree with you on that. The defense is very strong. Okay. We do have a joke on here. His cousin, Nick Petrozelli on here looks like Mr. Wilson, the quarterback. And he, so we call him Nick P because Nick is
clarification. My father Brian Cappy calls him Nick P. I don't call him that.
All right, but it's he's 17 on that one, and it's a little bit crazy that the Jets have a quarterback that looks like he's somewhere between 15 and 17 years of age. But being as that may, the defense has done a great job. We said it was the only chance to be able to do it. They have done very similar to Gavin Wimsatt, okay? Although Gavin, I expect at the end of his college career to be in much better shape with the tools he has, but similar into modifying the offense to be more addressed to the quarterback and the skills that they have. Exactly. In both the Rutgers and Jets scenario, that's what they've done, and that's enabled 3. And listen, I can't take anything away from the Jets. If you told me the Jets were going to beat the Eagles, again, would have said not a chance.
Yeah.
So,
the only point I'll make to you with your Gavin Wimsatt comment is Zach Wilson is a starting quarterback in the National Football League. Gavin Wimsatt is not.
That's true on that one, but I also don't think the 19-year-old could be a starting quarterback in the NFL.
I think he's 20 at this point.
He's still 19.
But what I'll say for my Jets is, we just look better. This is a team that still gives me optimism for a playoff run. They've, again, like I said, slowed this offense down. That's exactly what you needed to do. You needed to go in and change something. It was a big problem I noticed with Sam Darnold, and it's a problem that we've noticed with Zach Wilson early in his careers. The Jets keep running long developing plays, and we don't have the line ever to run these long developing plays, and it leads to our quarterback constantly being in pressure and constantly making the throws you don't know if he really can make. Especially when guys are running straight at his face. So the fact that Nathaniel Hackett has sat here and slowed the offense down to benefit Zach Wilson, stop him from turning the ball over. Right, one pick, and it was an incredible catch by Patrick Surtain a week ago, or 2 weeks ago. My apologies. You've noticed that Zach Wilson is slowing down, going through his reads better, and when he can't find anything, he's either dumping it off to Brees or Dalvin Cook, or he's just running for it, and that's exactly what you want from Zach Wilson.
With that said, who does the Jets have after the bye week?
Let me check for you, Father.
Jack! What the heck is going on here?
We have... my apologies. I didn't know this. We are playing our in-state rivals, the New York Giants.
Oh, yeah, that's right. They were talking about it. And the Giants won today. Okay, found a way with that offensive line to pull a win together with Tyrod Taylor having a nice game.
Tyrod Taylor's better than Daniel Jones at this point.
He is at this point on that part of it, probably because he can run a lot better than Daniel. But what is your prediction on this game? Is it a home game? Is it a away game? What do we got here?
It's technically an away game, so you're not going to get to see the ticket holders in there.
So you guys are going to be in the visitor locker room.
But I gotta say we're gonna win this game. Right? The Giants haven't looked good. They really have not looked good. The Giants are moving closer towards a first overall pick at this point than they are a playoff run.
What do we think the spread on the game is going to be?
I'd look towards I don't know. I'll say 7.5.
Oh, yeah, I don't think that high. I would say Jets by 3 points. Jets are favored by 3, so you're getting 3 points if you take the Giants.
I don't know fully.
Because you have a quarterback who has difficulty scoring, and you have
the odds are probably,
but a great defense, and then you have the Giants who they had Saquon back, and he was he was looking better.
The odds are probably out there somewhere, but me and my father are just making our predictions. I will say though, I do expect it to be a win. I expect the defense to come out nicely. The Giants have struggled so far, especially against good defenses, and I don't think the offense is really going to need to score a lot of points in order to win this game, even though I do think they have the capability to do so. I like Brees a lot right now. Like I said, I'm starting to believe in Zach Wilson again, and I think the team is as well, right? There was early struggles, right? There was reports that were coming out saying earlier in the year the team didn't like Zach Wilson, that they were mad with Robert Saleh for sticking with him. There were people calling for Tim Boyle to come in, which, no disrespect to Tim Boyle, but I never agreed with those takes. But you look at it, and they're starting to turn a new leaf. They're starting to say, hey, maybe this Jets team, even without Aaron Rodgers, can still make a playoff push. And hey, Aaron Rodgers was out there throwing last week.
Homer alert.
He was out there throwing a little bit next week.
Oh, God. Homer alert.
We make the playoffs. Maybe Aaron Rodgers is back. So you got to look at everything. You got to be optimistic if you're a Jets fan. And it's not a terrible time. I've definitely gone through worse.
If it's a 3-point spread on that game, which is what I think it will be, I can see going with the Jets. If it is 7 points, I could see going with the Giants. And my reason for that is this, historically, these guys usually battle it out. I expect it to be a bruising, nasty battle. They generally don't like each other when they play each other in the preseason. I think this is going to be a hard-fought battle, and I could see this being a field goal type of game that's there, that they're win by, or maybe by 6 points. So if you get 7 on that one, I would go with the Giants in 7. But it's a 3-pointer that I think I would be going with the Jets. So we'll have to see what rolls out. Any last thoughts before we have our background music?
No, I think you got to be optimistic if you're a Jets fan, and especially if you're a Rutgers fan. I think you got to be optimistic. If you're a fan of college football, there's a lot of disparity right now in the polls. There's a lot of teams we haven't seen very good in a while, and they're really good. But I think you got to be. I think it's a fun time to be a fan of football overall.
It is a very exciting time. Very happy being 6-2. And we're not even at Halloween, so there's a lot of treats. Figuring out some trick plays for Ohio State and for Gang Green against the Giants will be very exciting as we sign off and we enjoy our background music.